I want to tell you a story about a state management architect. That was his self-appointed title. 3 years ago, I joined a project where this genius had decided that every single byte of data, from the user's middle name to the is-overwritten state of a tooltip, needed to live in a global Redux store. We had 450 actions. We had reduced that looked like a genealogy trees of the European royalty. To change a checkbox, you had to fire an action, trigger a second, wait for the side effect, update the reduced, and hope the selected didn't cause a re-render that crashed the browser. We spent 3 months building a caching layer on top of Redux because the API calls were too slow. We essentially reinvented a database inside the browser using objects that we had to manually keep in sync with a Spring Boot backend. Do you know what happened when the internet flickered for a millisecond? The source of truth became a lie. The UI said the data was saved. The database said it didn't exist. The user was stuck in a digital purgatory of spinning loaders. We spent 200,000 euros in developer hours to build a system that was less reliable than a window location reload. Efficiency. My name is Sergio, and I spend way too much time thinking about why we keep building the same broken abstractions over and over again. This is the second video in the Full Stack 2026 React and Spring Boot playlist. If you ever looked at a 500-line use effect and thought there has to be a better way to fetch a list of users, hit subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the series. Today we are killing the boilerplate. We are talking about the modern state management, React, Spring Boot, and the absolute necessity of TanStack Query. Before we touch the code, we need to address the psychological denial that keeps Redux and heavy-handed Z-stand implementation alive in 2026. We tell ourselves these slides to feel like engineers, rather than people who move JSON from point A to point B. Line number 1, the client is the source of truth. It isn't. Your database is the truth. Your client is just a temporary, high unreliable cached view of the truth. The moment you treat server state data that lives in the database the same as the UI state, like whatever model is open, you're already lost. Line number 2, I need global state for scalability. No, you need global state because you don't know how to pass props or you're terrified of the network tab. 90% of what you put in a global state is just server data that you are manually catching because you don't trust the browser. Line number 3, writing my own fetch wrapper makes the app cleaner. Your clean wrapper doesn't handle the duplication, it doesn't handle Windows focus refetching, and it definitely doesn't handle race conditions. You haven't discovered it yet. You aren't built a framework, you are building technical depth. Let's look at the evolution of pain. In this phase, we believe we can control the chaos with our bare hands. This looks fine for a to-do list tutorial, but in the real world, if the user clicks profile 10 times, you fire 10 requests. If they navigate away before the fetch finishes, you are updating state on an unmounted component. There is no caching, there is no retry logic, it's a fragile piece of hope disguised as code. Now the developer has discovered the Redux toolkit, or a similar professional tool. They want to be organized. Congratulations, you've added 40 lines of boilerplate to do the exact same thing as the useEffect hook. You still haven't solved cache invalidation. You still haven't solved the background refetching. You've just moved the mess into a global object that now persists until the user closes the tab, eating up memory for data they will never look at again. This isn't architecture, it's a tax on your productivity. Alright, let's build this for 2026. We are using TanStack Query for the frontend and Spring Data projections for the backend. We stop pretending the server data is our state. It belongs to the network. With this, the state is gone from our component. TanStack Query manages the cache. If two components need the same user, they share the same request. No actions, no reducers, no status idle nonsense. One big issue with SPA is the flash offloading. In 2026, we solved this by pre-populating the cache using Spring Data projections and sending that data in the initial HTML or via prefetch. Here's our Spring Boot rule story. And on the React side, we use hydration. We aren't waiting for the useEffect to fire after the JS loads. The cache is already warm. We've eliminated the loading spinner without writing a single line of manual synchronization logic. Users hate waiting. If they update the username, the UI should change now. But we also need to handle the fact that our backend might throw a 500 because the database is currently on fire. This is battle-scared logic. We cancel outgoing fetches so they don't overwrite our optimistic update. We save the old state, the rollback point. We update the UI instantly. If the server fails, we roll back silently. Regardless of what happens, we refetch to ensure we are back in sync with the database. It's bulletproof and it doesn't require a single Redux action. The most common mistake is leaving the defaults. In an enterprise app, data consistency is a sliding scale. Stale time is your friend. It defines how long the data is fresh. In a high-traffic enterprise dashboard, you might want this at 0. In a documentation site, 1 hour. We stop guessing and start configuring based on the domain. Why do smart developers still choose the hard way? Why do we see teams of 20 people struggling with state management for years? It's cargo cult programming. At some point, a big tech company like Facebook had a specific problem, like a notification counter that was out of sync across multiple complex views, and they built Redux to solve it. Every other developer saw it and thought, if I use the same tool as Facebook, I'm a Facebook-level engineer. We call it the reason-driven development. You want Redux Saga or complex observable streams on your CV because it looks more impressive than I use a library that handled everything for me in 5 lines. We choose complexity because complexity feels like value, but in professional environment, simplicity is the ultimate value. Every line of code you didn't write is a line of code you don't have to debug at 4 a.m. on a Friday when the production server starts screaming. I can already hear the comments. Well, actually, Sergio, Redux provides a centralized place for middleware and debugging. Really? When was the last time you looked at the Redux DevTools and it actually helped you find a bug that wasn't caused by Redux itself? Well, actually, what if I have highly interdependent data that needs to be updated across 10 different pages? Then your API design is the problem, not your state management. If your frontend needs to perform complex relational joins in memory, you have failed at the backend layer. Use a Spring projection. Return the data the UI actually needs and let TanStack Query cache it by its ID. Stop trying to build a database in the browser. You are not a database engineer. You are a UI developer. Focus on the UI. If you want to fix your codebase tomorrow, do this. Identify server state. Look at every object in your global state. If it comes from an API, it's server state. Delete reducers. Move that data into TanStack. Use query hooks. Use key-based caching. Use meaningful query keys like orders, order ID, or items. Implement optimistic updates only where it matters. Don't do it for everything. Do it for the buttons users clicks the most. Let the browser do its job. Trust the cache. Trust the stale time. Modern state management isn't about finding a bigger box to put your variables in. It's about realizing that most of the variables shouldn't be your responsibility in the first place. Offload the synchronization to a tool that's better at it than you are. Spend the extra time actually building features, or better yet, going home on time. Now go delete some code you don't need, and see you in the next video. Bye!